So, this is You Made Me Do This. Each week I'm going to post a post on Facebook and Twitter. Look forward to it. I'm going to be changing the days, though. After we rebrand, I'm going to be making it over the weekend, and that's just to give me and Patrick a little bit more time to prepare. Yeah. But I make the posts, and I say, hey, what do you guys want us to talk about? And we'll talk about it. We haven't turned down anything yet, because this week we're taking a little bit of a turn out of the nerd sector, but we're keeping it to television, because Chris really thought we should talk about positive messaging in television, kind of positive TV, happy TV, yeah. TV that makes you feel good. And his first example was Queer Eye, which is where I thought we should start.
Such a great example, such a great show, which I've loved. I admit that I did not watch the original Queer Eye. I knew that it was a thing.
Yeah.
But to the point where when I saw the Queer Eye on Netflix, it took me a minute to realize, oh, these aren't the same people.
I had no idea it wasn't the same people until after somebody pointed it out.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess they are kind of young. No, but I absolutely love the show. I love the positivity, and no matter who they're coming to help, because that's really what the show is about. It's about going out and helping people. And it's not just, I mean, on the superficial level, it's about like, okay, how you dress, and they do everything, talk about hygiene a little bit, talk about food, fashion, grooming. But at the same time, it's really like treating yourself and respecting yourself for you to not just show the world who you are, but like feel confident in your skin, which is just a gorgeous, just beautiful, amazing message for the world.
Yeah, shout outs to Ted Allen, by the way, one of the original Fab Five, apparently. Because, and for those of you who don't know who that is, that's the guy who's the host of Chopped. I didn't know that.
I had no idea.
Until recently. So the host of Chopped was one of the original Fab Five.
Yeah.
So you mentioned not watching the original Queer Eye. I didn't either, and honestly, I don't think I would have been in a mental state to appreciate the original. That was several years ago.
Yeah.
A slightly less, extremely less mature version of myself, where I'm like, well, this show's kind of dumb, and I see how wrong I was whenever this show came back on. I see it when I'm 30 years old, and at first I kind of laughed, and I'm like, oh, Queer Eye's back. And then there's this point, is it Jonathan? Is that the guy's name?
Yeah, Jonathan with the hair.
The hair. Where he's talking to this dude, and he's just telling this guy, like, how awesome he looks. Like, he's just giving him a haircut, and, like, he's just totally boosting this dude's self-esteem. And I didn't like tear up, but you got the little salt in your eye, where it's just like, where's this onion thing, where you're just like, this guy's so nice, like, what? And then you watch an episode and like, man, they are so nice to whoever it is that they're helping out, like, and you realize how often that doesn't happen. Like, people are not that nice all the time. I'm from the South, and we're known for being polite people, but there's still something different to this show.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. There's another show that I would say I still think it's feel good, but they're as nice as you could be with the train wrecks that happen. But if you've watched Nailed It on Netflix, they get people who admittedly are like, I wish I could bake, but I'm really bad at it. And they get them to try to recreate these amazing, like, pieces of art, art dessert, if you will.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, they're really positive, even though they completely botch this stuff. They are really positive in like what they did. Even they could just trash them and make fun of them, which is what I thought the show was going to be.
Yeah.
When you see stuff like this popping up, where you see this gorgeous, like Rapunzel, and then someone tries to make it looks like a horror movie, and It's a great example of like, this could be such a negative show where they just like rip on the person left and right. And when you watch it, you're like, oh, they're actually really uplifting, and they try to be nice, even though they're being constructive. You mentioned another cooking show, like just before we went on, the Great British Baking Show.
Yeah,
there's another great one in that, which I think part of their positivity is just, I mean, yeah, I would say maybe it's stereotypical, but like even in competition, they're like really cordial to each other.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that. Like, there's not like stupid trash talking. They're all just passionate about what they're doing, which I think is really cool.
I got into this show because my wife really enjoys it.
Yeah.
And I love a good cooking show. One of my favorite shows on television is Top Chef, which is like that one does have some drama. It's not about being nice there. But what I liked initially about watching the show is that these people are competing. They're competing for $0. It's totally a non-American thing. Like, I just can't see that many American shows where they would compete for no money. These people are not competing for anything other than a cake tray and the fact that they'll become like Instagram famous. But they're always so nice to each other. Like, there's no there's no drama-filled things. They're not like hoping the other person fails or anything like that. Everybody's like, "Oh, you did such a good job!" Like they're crying for each other. Yeah. They're smiling for each other. Like, even the judges, they'll be honest and say like, "Hey, that didn't work out," or "Hey, that whatever." But at the same time, like, they will never be cruel. They're never going to say anything hurtful or anything like that. They're just going to be honest about the food, and then if something didn't work out, they'll still boost you up and be like, "Hey, you tried.
Yeah,
good job."
And they give good constructive criticism. David in the comments said we already have Gordon Ramsay for trashing people like that.
And Robert said one of the ladies' cakes fell and everyone was about to cry. They were like, and even though it's all about completion, it's that kind of thing.
I think it's because people are they're trying to do something they're all passionate about.
Yeah.
And it's not about, like you said, it's not about the money. It's not about like some ego. I will say that sometimes when they're talking about it, they're like, I really want to show my my friends or whatever that like I'm that I'm really good at this. Or sometimes they'll go on there and they're like, this is like my grandmother's recipe or whatever. But the British Baking Show, like, they kind of change it up where they don't really fully know what they're gonna tackle, right? They do 3 different things. Like, one of them, they have no idea what they're going to make, and that's one of the 2 judges' recipes that they pick. But one of the other 2 challenges, they do like roughly know. Yeah, and so I've seen them bring in stuff where they're like, I really enjoy this, or like, this is something I make on at home, and I really hope that people like this pairing, which is really interesting when the judges sometimes are like, this. I didn't think it would work, but it actually does. And I like non-traditional things like that the judges didn't just completely crap on the idea of the pairing. They were like, that's interesting, and then they tried it and they're like, okay, I see where you're going, and they'll start giving tips, or they'll say things like, you should have cooked it a little bit longer, but it's really good. Other than that, like, I think that's really cool. It's really positive, taking those elements, because baking is chemistry. And first of all, cooking, I can cook. That's not a problem. But baking is chemistry. You screw up one little thing, and it doesn't quite hit the mark. And I think that's a really cool way to like encourage people to keep trying.
Yeah.
I like to say, like, in just regular like stovetop cooking or that kind of thing, like, you can usually save something if something starts going south, you can save it. You can't do that with baking. It's like, just throw it out, start again. That's really all you can do.
And it's really fun with how baking goes. And this is kind of like a side off topic, but just like my mom makes this pie. It's a chocolate chess pie, and she makes it every single year. And she makes it a couple times a year, and it's my favorite thing in the world to eat. But she's been making this my entire life, 31 years, maybe longer, that she's been making this pie. It's slightly different every time, because like, it could have been in the oven a minute shorter or a minute longer, or it didn't blend the same way that it did last year whenever she used the egg beater. Like, it's really weird with baking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think, your mom's not a professional chef. I love her. I'm just saying like, that's not her thing. But like, I'd say the same thing about my grandma's cooking, and my mom cooks a lot of things that my grandma like used to cook and kind of passed down. And every year, for you, it's that pie. For me, it's a peanut butter fudge.
There you go.
I absolutely love peanut butter fudge, and I've been trying to find a sugar-free recipe because peanut butter's already tastes good. So like if you can get something that's basically make a sugar-free version, which I'm sure you can do. Don't be shaking your head over here. I'm sure you can do it. I will literally, I'm not above like taking, I literally have this in front of me, by the way. I have a spoon that I had earlier. I just scooped some peanut butter and ate it.
I understand.
I love peanut butter that much. But yeah, peanut butter fudge is the same way. Like every now and then it's like, this one's a little stiffer than usual, or and just because of the tempering of the sugar and everything. So I think it's pretty cool. I want to bring up one other new one before we talk about other stuff, which is tidying up. Which, again, I thought this show was going to be like Hoarders.
Yeah.
Where you go in and you're like, holy crap, these people, how do they live this way? And then they have like mental breakdowns, and then they bring in their family, and it's not that at all. Like it's Marie Kondo like coming in and trying to help someone get a hold of their life because there's so much clutter that they can't enjoy the things that they love. And a lot of times it's the things that they love that clutter up their houses or just life. And being like, look, you can get this to a good place, and once you're at that place, it's easy to maintain. And there's so many heartfelt moments where she's showing people like, oh, you don't have to throw away what you love, but it's basically just about keeping control of your clutter. I saw on I'm sure you saw, like, when it first came out, people were mad because she said something in her book. Yeah. She says that she doesn't keep more than 20 or 21 books in her library, but she specifically says that's what she does.
Yeah. That's where people want to get outraged about anything, because there are lots of people that want to keep more books than that.
Sure.
She just says, like, if that makes you happy, like that's her biggest thing. This show spoke a lot to me when it came out. I won't go too deep into it because it's personal, but I grew up in a very cluttered household, and that's saying it nicely. And what I have is I just get anxiety about it, right? Like I will just literally, like, once a year or so, I will feel enclosed by my house. And you've been to my house. It's not that bad at all, right? And not bad. It's not even close to bad. But there'll just be like a day where there's like maybe too many Amazon boxes or something. I'll just feel enclosed on it, and I will go throw crap out. Not just the Amazon boxes, but I will decide that stuff needs to get thrown out. And the way that she put it, I think in some ways she's a little crazy, and that's okay.
Sure. Because
it works for her, and she seems otherwise well put together. But the fact that she was like, hey, look at your stuff. What makes you happy? Okay. Did that thing make you happy or not? Well, if it doesn't make you happy, maybe you don't care about it as much, and maybe you can get rid of it.
Yeah.
There was one episode that was particularly meaningful to me, where it was a woman who had lost her husband, and she hadn't gotten rid of his stuff yet, which mainly his clothes.
Yeah.
You don't want to get rid of all his stuff, but like those clothes, like, probably you're never gonna wear them, right? You're not. Yeah. You're probably not the same size as your spouse. And she helped this woman work through that. And I had those thoughts about like my dad's stuff, and like how, hey, maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea if we got rid of that. She has not gotten to that point yet. It'd be cool, but it struck me where, again, this show, like you mentioned, it's not about like exposing these people and saying like, hey, this person's living a gross lifestyle. It's no, hey, they maybe went through some stuff, or maybe they're a little busy, or maybe there was another one that was like a working family, like just everybody worked, and they didn't make a lot of money, so they lived in a small space, and
they downsized, like they moved to like a small space, they downsized to do it, and it was, I think that's a great example of also. Part of it was like the classic, like, mom does everything, and another part of it was like a lot of unhappiness because of the clutter. And my wife is like that. I call myself clutter blind because like I don't really notice it. I really don't. Yeah, I literally, yeah. You're welcome. Yeah, I started calling myself that when I was like in middle school or like high school, because like I literally would not notice it, or it wouldn't bother me, to the point where like it bothered other people, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I should do something about it. To Whitney, clutter really bothers her, where like I really want to go through like the Marie Kondo stuff, like, and just really simplify what we have. And if there's stuff where you're like, I want to keep that, okay, but do you need it out? Do you need it out now? Do you need it accessible all the time? No?
Yeah.
Okay, put it up. That's okay. Find a place for it and put it up, and you can access it later. It doesn't mean that it's not inaccessible. I've got my guitars here because I want to have them at the ready. If I put them up, I'm not going to have them at the ready. Just in case someone comes in and needs a guitar solo battle, I'm at the ready.
But maybe you don't need your Xbox 360.
Sure.
Chilling out there because you got your Xbox One.
Yeah. My Wii U, my Xbox 360, and my PS3 are all in a closet, because I actually take that back. My PS3 is in the entertainment center, like underneath, but I'm about to box it up. I'm about to box up all of those, because I'm like, I don't need it. If I want to pull out the Wii U and play some Wii U games, 'cause I liked my Wii U, I have it, and it's still okay. I do the same thing. I mean, you don't do that with puzzles. You don't just keep puzzles like hanging out. So, because you're not working them.
Yeah. And again, they just tying it back to where we started with this. We're just, again, like, this show could have come at it from a completely different direction, but the show is literally like, Joy's not mentioned there, but that's her big thing. I think it's just called Tidying Up with Marie Kondo.
Yeah, but it's about sparking joy.
Sparking joy. And the same thing with Queer Eye and British Bake Off, and I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the baking show you said.
Oh, Nailed It.
Nailed It. It's just it's all about it's about the positivity. It's not about exposing negativity. It's about turning things into a positive direction. Is awesome. And what this made me think of was stuff that I didn't appreciate. Again, I mean, I grew up on it, at least on the first one I'm going to mention. I grew up on this show, but I didn't really get it until recently when I watched the documentary on him, and that's Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. For those of you who haven't seen the documentary, it's very powerful. It came out last year, and it's so good. But there's that song in there. There's several songs, and there's several things that he did, but the thing where it was a totally encouraging children's show. He existed there to encourage children to be themselves, and not talk down to them in any way, but help them understand the world a little bit. And I didn't get it. I didn't, it's just one of those things. You watch PBS, right? Like, you're gonna watch your Sesame Street, you're gonna watch your Mr. Rogers. Like, it was just part of your routine. But then you see several years later as an adult, like, Fred Rogers he just wanted children to be encouraged. He did not want it to be everything negative. I think his thing was he was seeing a sparking of just a lot of negative television. I think he spoke to that a lot. And he's like, we need a positive place for our kids to go. And I wanted to create that positive place for them. Everybody should check out the documentary. It's so good.
I need to see it. It's been on my list. I need to see it for a lot of reasons.
Tissues, dude.
Yeah. Mr. Rogers, I know I watched him when I was much younger. I don't have a lot of solid memories of watching him because it was so early. Like, similarly, I don't have a lot of solid memories watching Sesame Street. I know I watched the heck out of Sesame Street when I was little. But one of my earliest memories of shows wasn't those. It was The Joy of Painting, which you put in the doc. I used to watch that, and I used to watch that at my grandma's house, and she painted. She didn't paint along to his stuff. Not that I remember. She did paint a lot of things that were similar.
Scenic stuff.
Yeah, a lot of scenic stuff. A lot of like old like country barns and stuff. And it always reminded me of her. I mean, partially because I watched it at her house, but because painting was a big deal for her. But he was so positive about creating, and purposely saying, you let your guard down. It's okay if you mess up. It's okay. It's happy little mistakes.
Happy little accidents.
It's so true. It's so true though, from a creative perspective. As a musician, I try to be an artist. I've not been good at that. But as a musician or a writer, there's a lot of times where you're not happy with your work because you think it could have been better. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Like you it's okay. The way you did it was okay. Try it again next time. You may learn more things. And part of that learning process was so important, instilling that it's not a failure. Like when you Whitney and I go to Painting with a Twist. I don't know if you've been to those. Have you ever been to those?
I have not. She has, but
Okay.
actually for her birthday next month, I'm having, instead of going to one of those places, I'm having them come to the house for her birthday.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. If you haven't, like, even if you're not, like you said, you like to say you don't have an artistic bone in your body, but like they try to make it really easy, and then like they come around to you and help you, where they're like, oh well, maybe do this a little bit more, and sometimes they'll just completely bail you out if they see that you're not that they'll change it because of how it looks, but if you're not happy with it, then they'll either coach you or they may fix something for you. But it's really positive. It's a really positive thing. It's like, a couple hours of just sitting and painting and that positivity, drinking. Like I never drink in those, but like I know most people do, but like it's just a really cool, happy thing.
Bob Ross wasn't somebody that I like. I remembered the show the second that I saw it as an adult, but it's not anything that I have any memory of as a kid. But for those of you who spend a decent amount of time online, and in particular on Twitch, where I spend a lot of my time, I think it was early last year or late 2017, where Twitch played in its entirety every single episode of The Joy of Painting. And it was this phenomenon that happened. They've done it with Pokemon, they've done it with other shows, but this show in particular, I think at peak, I think it had six figures in terms of people watching. Most of the time it's more around like 30 or 40,000, but just everybody was into it. Like every little, like his little sayings, like whenever he would take the brush out and like he would beat the devil out of it whenever he was getting the paint off, and the happy little accidents, and like the joke would happen whenever he would like mess up, and everybody would say like ruined, but still just the fact that everybody was in on this. And again, I didn't know about it as a kid, but showing what he was doing, where it was a simple show. Like he's just there, he's just talking to you while he's painting. Like he would talk about like these little he really liked taking care of creatures, like different like squirrels and stuff that he talked about. Like he talked about cats. Like he really had a passion for it. For those of you who don't know, he lived in like Alaska.
Former drill instructor too, by the way. Drill instructor. There's a thing where he had like a squirrel in his pocket while he's painting, and he made sure the squirrel could like see what he was doing. It was so adorable.
It was just little things like that where you can see like he was a professional artist, but he recognized that everybody watching his show probably was not, and he was saying it didn't matter. Just like all these other shows, it doesn't matter if like you're a professional baker. It doesn't matter if you're like if you are the most tidiest person in the world. The fact is that you can be, and you can be better, and we're gonna put this message out here for you. All of these reality shows, and I think we're gonna talk about a couple of fictional ones here in a second. I didn't get it until this last year why shows like this are so important. I hope that there is more push for more positive television. Everything else has its place. There's a place for drama. There's a place for that for fiction that has tension. There's even a place for nonfiction that has tension, and not everything is all sunshine and roses. But we need a little sunshine and roses too. Like, roses smell good. The sun's nice. Let's get a little bit out there too.
I think that balance is important. I think with maturity, we realize how great these things are, and some have enough of a balance that they hit home no matter what. Which I would say, Family Matters to me was one of those shows. I watched the heck out of Family. This like, a lot of people talk about the Cosby Show, but that was like, I was a little young, like when the Cosby Show was on. But I watched Family Matters when it was new, and I loved it. And it
happened to predictability.
Yep. As soon as you see it, but to me, it was one of those feel good shows where you had some negative things happen. I had a big crush on her, by the way. But like,
Myra.
Yeah.
Maria.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah. I did, but I mean, it was one of those shows. It was positive. Yeah, stuff happened, but similar to Cosby Show, where it was like there's some type of message in there that's a message of positivity. It wasn't as like really on the nose, where Cosby Show like basically just straight up told you what the message of the show was. Yeah. But Family Matters like was really that for me for quite a while. Yeah,
and I think some other shows, and where it just became this thing that wrapped into a bigger picture was so the TGIF shows. There was Family Matters, which was awesome. There was Full House. There was one of my favorites, Boy Meets World.
Yep. And those are two I didn't appreciate till I was older as well.
Yeah. Boy Meets World's on Hulu, by the way, for those of you. Like, I went through a binge of it last year because, again, I was like, just so many things that I really didn't recognize for what they were trying to do, and that is like family content. Yeah. You know, think about how many shows, like, there's a big show coming back on Sunday. I'm sure everybody's aware. Can't watch that with the kids though.
Nope.
But we could turn on Friday, ABC, or I think it might have changed channels at some point, but ABC, and for the next 2 hours, doesn't matter who's in here, they can all watch this TV.
Well, and it was family. It's family programming, which I think Disney does a really good job of this as well. Where it's like, let's make family programming that you don't just write it off as a kids show. Like, it is literally a show that everyone in the family can enjoy, like you said. There's a lot of like Nickelodeon. When Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network first came out, like, it was very Nickelodeon was geared, like, it was like, we're gonna make shows for kids, and that's fine. But TGIF was all about, like, you know, your family. It's Friday night. Friday night families don't go out on the town usually, especially, you know, if you're more budget conscious. Stay in, watch Family Matters, and that was a cool thing about those things too, that I didn't recognize until you just said that, in terms of like the budget conscious. Like, these were shows about, like, a lot of times blue collar families. Yeah, like Roseanne, which I wouldn't put Roseanne in this category, but Roseanne 1 is one of those shows where it's like, let's show some real stuff. It's not a feel good show though. Yeah, I remember there's an episode of like Family Matters where like Laura has gotten into a really good school. I forget which school it was, but she can't go to that school because they can't afford it. Yeah. There's an episode of Boy Meets World where like he really wants like a particular like video game or like something like that, and his dad is a manager at a grocery store and they can't afford it. Full House wasn't so much that way. That one was a little bit less bound to reality because there's no way they afforded that. Yeah, he was a news anchor in San Francisco in a what would now be a multi-million-dollar home. I would think anyway. Well, that and like I guess rent controlled. Exactly, rent controlled. It's always rent controlled. Well, also like you could be like, oh well, yeah, we had multiple adults. Yeah, but none of them made money. Yeah, like they were all struggling people. Exactly. He was a stand-up comedian. Yep. Jesse had a band that was only okay. Yep. Danny was on TV, but on a morning show, and it was a local morning show. Yes. And who knows how good those are. He was not going to afford that. Yeah. We could go on and on and talk about shows of positivity, but let us know in the comments some of your favorite shows that spark joy for you, that you feel will spark joy in others as well. And see you later.
Yeah, and just as a reminder before he cuts off, is that I'll be posting these probably earlier starting next weekend. We have one more topic that's already planned for next week. Get ready for it, because we're going to be talking Marvel, baby. But yes, look forward to it probably maybe on Fridays, and then that way we can get into it the week after. That was You Made Me Do This. Make sure you comment. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks for watching This Week in Our Collective Heads. Subscribe over here and click the bell, and that way you'll know about any new videos that we put up, because we put up a lot of gameplay, a lot of stories from games and stuff like that, and gameplay is down here.
Yeah, and you got more editorials and news stuff down here. Check it out.